Welcome back. For the week ended 24th of January 2022, total turnover on the AFEX Commodity Exchange decreased by over 25%. Well, we have, for a change, Femi Kende, analyst structuring and origination at AFEX, joining us here, not in Abuja studio. Good to have you, Femi.
Hi, Chimize. Good morning. Happy
Ini is my name,
actually.
actually.
My bad. My bad. Hi,
okay, it's good to have you in Lagos for a change. So you want to give us how the week ended and why you have that 25% drop?
Decline. So for the week, we actually saw a significant decline in the level of activities on the exchange. In terms of the volume traded, the total number of deals executed, and the turnover on the exchange. Like you rightly said, the turnover on the exchange actually declined by 25% to close the week at about 6 billion naira, 2 billion naira worth of contracts executed. For the volume traded, we actually saw 8.2 million contracts executed, and for the number of these executed, we actually saw 602 deals executed for the week. However, the financial benchmark actually this week experienced a little bit of an uptick in the in its value reported. For the AFEX commodity index, we actually saw an increase of about 0.84. To close the week at 506 index points, and we actually saw the AFEX export commodity actually return its previously reported week value. In terms of the volume traded across commodities, maize continued to account for a significant proportion of the trade, as 5 million contracts were executed this week. However, we actually saw paddy rice, soybean, sorghum, cashew, and cocoa actually being traded for the reporting week. And in terms of prices, we actually saw an uptick in soybean prices, paddy rice prices, cashew prices, and then we saw a marginal decline in maize, sorghum, and cocoa prices. So for soybean, we actually saw a significant increase of 1.18% to close the week at 104 naira per contract. And then for paddy rice, we actually saw a marginal increase of about 0.82% to close the week at 226 naira per contract. For cashew, we actually saw a significant increase of about 2.09% week on week to close the week at 497 naira per contract. However, for maize, we saw a marginal decline of about 0.15% to close the week at 239 naira per contract. Same with sorghum. Sorghum actually closed the week at 239 naira per contract with a 0.13 week on week marginal decline. And then cocoa to close the week at 1,199 naira per contract with a 0.08 marginal decline week on week.
Okay, so can you give us an update on the performance of commodities since the beginning of the season?
Right, so the first thing I would like to say is that commodities have actually increased at a faster pace compared to the same period last year. And there might be a lot of fundamentals driving this.
When you say commodities have increased, are you talking about the prices?
Yeah, the prices, right. So the prices of a kg in the open market for maize, a kg for soybean, a kg for paddy rice, sorghum, in the open market within this time period, that is from the 1st of December to right now, we've actually seen a faster rate of increase compared to the previously reported, compared to the same period as last year.
So that's good for investors, but not very good for consumers.
Yes, sure. And there are a lot of factors influencing this. Number one would be the continuous imbalance between supply and demand, as we have not been able to produce enough to service every demand or the total demand that we have in the country or the total consumption that we have in the country. Other things that might factor into this might be the fragmented nature of the commodities market, because we know that farmers live in areas that are far away from economic hotspots, so traders actually still take advantage of it, and you see why there actually exists middlemen within the markets where they buy the commodities cheaply from farmers who really don't have access to storage, and then they'll go to economic hotspot and actually sell it at a higher price to processors. So we believe that these factors, though there are a lot of things that are happening, or a lot of policies that are being implemented by different stakeholders in the value chain, but we believe for the short to medium term, these factors will continue to exist and they will continue to influence prices upward.
And then it's about a month since the listing of the FETC. How's the security performing?
I mean, I like to say it has performed wonderfully well. Currently, the FETC is about 1,249.
And it started at how much?
So the FETC was listed in December at 1,000 naira per unit. But as at now, the FETC is about 1,246 naira per unit. Now, the reason for this would honestly be the performance of the underlying commodities. But one thing we should also note is that the FETC is a unique product in the sense that it mirrors the exchange mission to actually enable that capital transition from the capital market to the commodities market, right? And given that these underlying commodities, the prices of these underlying commodities will continue to be bullish, we know that the FETC will continue to edge upward. And the fact that the FETC is a diversified form of investment in the sense that you're not just holding a unit of maize, you're holding a unit of soybean, some unit of sorghum, and it helps hedge your risk exposure as to
So
decline.
even if this commodity is not performing so well, another commodity could actually cover up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, now that you have said it, aren't you expecting profit taking? Profit taking, once the price goes up, you know, profit taking comes and then it just goes down and then we start all over again.
I mean that might be the case, but how do I put this? So we have the fund manager. We have a fund manager actually managing the FETC, right? Because it's not passively managed, or it's actively managed. So in this case,
what do you mean by that?
So what this means is that the fund manager would take decisions to the best interest of the investors or the unit holders. So what this means is if he should foresee a price decline in commodities or a specific commodities, he can actually liquidate his position there. And then invest in other things that might actually increase the value of the portfolio, or the value of the total assets under management. Another thing would be if he's seeing a possibility of arbitrage, right, of which it would bring profit to the portfolio, he can actually take position in order to do this, which would be to benefit of the investor. So yeah, the product is really interesting.
All right, so let's look a bit outside Nigeria now.
Yeah.
The thing with Russia and Ukraine is threatening energy prices in the UK, in Europe. Does it have any impact on food prices in Nigeria?
Yes, it's scary, but it has a significant impact on food prices in Nigeria.
Significant?
Yes, so the issue with this is Nigeria currently produces about 40% of its wheat consumption. And given the fact that we are large importers of wheat, and the byproducts or the end products that actually come out from this wheat, we know that the typical household will want to always consume bread. The typical household might want to consume spaghetti. The typical household might want to consume certain of these things. And then the competing or the substitute to which the household might want to trade off would it be rice, corn, and those prices are not so favorable for them because they're eating to their pockets. And we know that Russia and Ukraine account for about 30% of the wheat exports. So because of this, international players or international commodity market experts are beginning to price this geopolitical crisis or instability into the prices of wheat. And as such, processors would honestly want to go into the markets and honestly buy at a higher price, which at the end of the day, there will be a lot of transfer pricing to the final consumer. So, I mean... So
the world is indeed a global village.
Yes, it is. It is.
So recently, you also launched your AFEX Commodities Outlook, and the macroeconomic factors were also part of it. So what are the outstanding factors that will shape landscape this year? So
the first thing, like we've rightly talked about in this Business Morning program, will be petroleum subsidy. Right. Given that the federal government is proposing to postpone the removal or the scrapping of the petroleum subsidy in Nigeria, the removal of that initiative actually has a significant effect on commodities prices. Because as I rightly said before, farmers live significantly away from economic hotspots. So there's a need for logistics and even the infrastructure to rightly connect farmers to the marketplace, that is the good road networks, or even the technology to do that isn't really available, right? So as a result of this, farmers or people will want to spend more on transportation because logistic providers will obviously want to charge more in order to cover their profits, in order to cover their positions, right, or cover their books, right? And if logistic providers are charging more, we know that there will be increased cost of transportation. If there's increased cost of transportation, we know that this will honestly dovetail into commodities prices. And then you go to the market and you hear people say, oh, transport have increased, they've removed fuel subsidy, or this has happened, that's why rice is at this price. And it has a significant effect on commodities prices or commodities performance in the coming year, or 2022. And another important thing would be which cannot be overemphasized, is the imbalance between production and domestic consumption. I mean, according to our outlook, production of certain grains increased marginally, but this increase is not still enough to satisfy or service the domestic consumption demand for these commodities. And given that processors do not have access to AFEX in order to import these commodities, we know that this will continue to feed into higher commodities prices, higher food inflation, and the rest. So there are a lot of other factors, but these are the key factors we know that would affect the
landscape this year.
Yeah.
So talking to your partners now, how important is it for them to take position, talking about domestic markets now, to take position, and what position should they be looking at taking at this time?
So my advice to everybody, right, would be get exposure to the commodity space, right? You don't necessarily have to go to the physical market yourself. You could actually do it through AFEX, because AFEX has provided the infrastructure to streamline this for you. And the thing is, we've looked at the data, right? We've cross-referenced inflation to the AFEX Commodities Index performance, and we've seen that consistently, on an average, for a 4-year average, the AFEX Commodity Index has reported 23% above the inflation. So what this means is that, irregardless of capital erosion that will continue to happen in the country, I'm sure of a superior grain that will cover my capital loss and actually give me something in return.
Are you telling me you have a hedge there?
I mean, it's a superior hedge in this case in the domestic market. And then also looking at inflation to the currency or the value of the Nigerian currency in the international market, we've also observed that for every devaluation or depreciation of the naira, there's a 0.6% increase in the price of, there's a 6% increase in the price of, or the value of the AFEX Commodities Index.
6% increase in the value?
Of the AFEX Commodities Index.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. So it's like, if you want to also
have you cross-checked that, sir?
Trust me. It's a data I've had to look, and I'm like, this is scary, but this is the case. This is what we have, right? So if I'm an investor looking to hedge against foreign exchange exposure, hedge against inflation or capital erosion, I would advise, or I would honestly want to plug into the AFEX commodities market.
Not because you are coming from AFEX.
Not because I'm coming from AFEX.
All right, thank you so much, Femi Kehinde, for coming to share your thoughts with us physically this time, not from Abuja. Analyst structuring and origination at AFEX. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.